Hello, everybody. I'm Berl Schwartz from City Pulse here at the Message Maker Studio in Old Town, and for our monthly interview with the Mayor of Lansing, Andy Schor. Good to see you, Andy, and your
hey, Berl.
and your sweater. I saw you out digging a little dirt at the 600 block site.
Yep.
That's now that I see it with everything knocked down, it's a huge project.
It's easier to visualize.
Yeah, it really is.
There were houses that were taken down. The old Brogans came down. But yeah, and for those who don't know, the 600 block site, that's the downtown grocery store and hotel and housing. So we're really excited.
And in a square block, the only thing left is Liskey's.
Yeah, which stays.
It's very interesting. Well, I wanted to talk to you about some news I just heard about your new class of police officers. Mm-hmm. It's mostly minorities.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you could tell us what's the difference between the police department and the fire department. So last year, the new class of firefighters only had one minority, and here you've got 72% minority. How does that work?
Well, and we've talked about this, with the firefighters at the time, we were concerned about not having paramedics and not being able to respond to emergencies. So we said it was only going to be paramedics, and that was really the only thing we were looking at. And as I said at the time, I was disappointed that we didn't have diversity within that class, and we've put in a plan into place to try and change that. And when you look at the police department, they're actually, the plan that we're working on with fire is very similar to what we're already doing with police. So police, we have an Explorer program where you take high school students and they come and they work with our police department. We work with students to get them into the academy. Now, as you put kids into the academy and you have them as explorers, they're not guaranteed a job. So we are working to put Lansing residents and have a diversity of folks that go through the academy and through the Explorer program, and then we try and hire them. And this year, for the first time in a while, we were able to hire many, I would say most, but many of the explorers that we supported and then that went through the academy. So we were able to retain a lot of our own. We were able to actually hire a few police officers from other jurisdictions who, there was one who I believe was commuting to Grand Rapids and decided he wanted to be here. So we hired him. It's just again, they are all very qualified. We have the first, I want to say, Nepali police officer in the state. But Lansing's a good place to work, and
what is the first
Nepali? From Nepal. I think it was Nepal. Yeah, I think he was the first one from Nepal. I think that's the country in the state of Michigan. It's just there's great stories, but our chief has done a good job being sure that we actively go out and again are retaining the explorers and going after the folks in the academy. And people want to work here, and these are the systems that we're putting in place to try and work through with fire. So the more Lansing residents that we can retain, the more diversity we're going to have, because this is a diverse community. So if we can try and replicate an Explorer program, if we can work with folks as they become EMT trained in fire and then become certified for paramedics. It's not the same thing, because you don't go through a fire department academy. You get training as a firefighter 1, you get paramedic training, you get EMT training, so it's a little bit different, but that's why we're trying to replicate some of those processes. And that was a diversity plan that we announced, I believe, in the City Pulse, a month or two, a few months ago. But yeah, we're very proud of the police department, the hiring. It was diverse. You said 72%, I thought it was 80, but it's some big number. But a lot of it's because we were able to retain the explorers that we worked with, for years. It's a year process to bring folks in, be part of the police department, and then keep them.
And so it may take a few years for the fire department to catch up, do you think?
It could, because again, if we can do an Explorer program, then you're getting younger kids and you're trying to keep them in, so that's a few years. It takes time for EMTs to be trained as paramedics. So we need to grab onto EMTs and make sure we can train them to be paramedics. So it's going to take some time, but our fire chief is wholly committed to all of this. He did it in Florida. You wrote a good piece in the City Pulse a few weeks ago where you interviewed him, and he addressed much of this. So we're going down the field with fire as well to make sure that we have a fully trained and diverse fire department, and we're very proud of our recent police class, but all of our our police classes. we're seeing, the diversity numbers in our police department. So we're proud of that. Again, you want fully certified and ready to go officers, but the goal is always for the department to at least match the city, and we feel very comfortable with the class that we just had. And I know you'll probably print the picture in the paper, and we're proud of it.
Now, since we talked last, speaking of the fire department, you had a controversy over a firefighter who is suing the city for alleged racial discrimination, Michael Lynn Jr. And he was going to be suspended without pay for 2 weeks. Correct. Over some comments that he made on Facebook on his own time. You jumped in and reversed that, and I want to ask you, how did it get that far that he even was given that penalty?
Well, I don't want to get too much into it because there is a legal case going on, which actually is from before I was in office. The incident that he's suing us on was from before I became mayor. But, we have policies in place, and our social media policy, it does say that things that you do cannot negatively affect morale of the department, whether on or off duty. And it was brought to the fire folks, and they reviewed it. And the question was, there were pictures of firefighters and things that were in the social media post. And they judged that this was a violation of the policy. Now, 2 weeks unpaid is because this is a level. This is the third or fourth violation. So there's, first it's a warning, and then it's a few days unpaid, and then it's a full shift. So there's a progression. I reviewed the post, and I decided he was criticizing me, which he's a citizen of Lansing. And when you look at it as an employee creating morale issues within a department is a violation of the policy. But I looked at it as he's a citizen of the city of Lansing, and he was criticizing me, which he is absolutely allowed to do, as any citizen of the city of Lansing is. If you take the pictures out of it, then the text was all about me. Putting the pictures in, it involved other firefighters and things like that. But I looked at the text, and what the fire department did, legally was correct, but it ultimately comes to me as a decision maker, and I reversed the decision and said I don't believe this is a violation in my terms. We do have a social media policy, and he was determined to have violated it, but I believe that he has the right as a citizen to criticize his government. So we reversed it, and we'll be reviewing those policies to see if there's anything that needs to be changed. Our fire, and that was the next question you're going to ask.
Well, that was a question I was going to ask.
Our fire chief is reviewing all of the policies within the department.
They do seem broad.
Yeah, and this is, it's not unusual. There's actually a Supreme Court case which allows for government and businesses and others to determine the public actions done off duty. So again, legally it satisfies, but for me, he has the right as a citizen to criticize his government. So we reversed it, and there'll be a review of all the policies.
I'm wondering about the process, because you seem surprised to learn about this penalty.
But the process goes through the collective bargaining agreement. We have a collective bargaining agreement between the employees and the city, and I'm not involved with that. It goes through the fire department. His superiors review it. After that, the decision is made, and then it goes to HR, and then it comes to me. So no, I was not involved in that, and I'm not supposed to be.
Well, you weren't involved in the process, but were you aware that he was going to be punished in this way before they actually told him?
No, I wasn't.
So that's what I'm wondering about. It seems like your human resources director, your fire chief, your city attorney, somebody might have said, "Hey, Your Honor."
Well, we have processes in place. I don't want to get involved in disciplinary actions on an initial level because I guess because this was a unique case, because there was a lawsuit. Maybe they should have come to me and let me know. But for them, they're not going to let the mayor know every time there's a disciplinary case. If somebody is late to work, if somebody doesn't wear their uniform, those don't all come to me. That's why we have processes in place with a collective bargaining agreement, with grievance processes. So they issued this. He had the right to grieve it. The union grieved it on his behalf. And again, eventually I just reversed it. So they went through the processes that are in place through the bargaining agreement. The union was involved on his behalf, and it went through the process like it was supposed to.
And I don't want to dwell on this one last question.
Sure.
A sidebar to this was that your predecessor blasted you with a public statement the first time he has said anything, pro or con, about anything you've done since you replaced him. Have you two talked? Have you worked things out?
We have not. We have not spoken.
Okay.
He is a citizen of the city of Lansing, and he has a right to his opinion, but we have not spoken.
Okay. City elections. Now we've got the players in place for the off-year elections, which are the city council elections. It's not unprecedented for mayors to get involved in those elections. What about you?
It's not my intention at this time.
You're comfortable with.
We've got 3 races, in essence 2. Right. The 3rd Ward, Councilman Hussein is running unopposed, so I guess I can support Councilman Hussein. He's running unopposed. I mean, theoretically, someone could put their name down in a write-in in the primary and then move to the general, but he's running unopposed. Councilwoman Washington in the 1st Ward has 4 opponents. Probably 1 or 2 of which I know, 1 or 2 of which I don't. Some are they're all in one way or another. Well, many of them are friends, but I'm not planning to get involved. It's something where the councilwoman will, she'll go to the voters and talk about her record, and there are others will talk about their interest in serving. Same thing in the at-large. Both of our at-large councilwomen, Spitzley and Wood, are running, and I believe there's 5 total in that race. And I don't know all of them, but I know some of them. And I'm just not, at this point, unless I see a need sometime between now and August or November, I am not planning to get involved, and the citizens are going to have their say.
Past mayors have tried to push members of council off the council with, I think David Hollister had some success. I'm not sure Verge Bernero ever did, but
he did.
But
he had some.
But you're comfortable with the incumbents.
I work well with all of them.
Okay.
We don't always agree, and that's okay. But I can pick up the phone and call any one of them and have a good conversation. So I work well with all of them. Mayor Hollister and I had a good conversation recently about this. He did get involved at first, but he didn't get involved in every election. He got involved when he thought that there needed to be a change. I know Mayor Bernero also got involved in many of the elections with some success, I guess. It's just a difference of opinion. I don't know if Mayor Benavides got involved. I don't recall. But
I think he was too busy running.
He was running. That's right. He was running
himself.
Twice. That's true. That's a good point. He was running twice. But again, I have a good relationship with all of them. I didn't actively put anybody in the race. I didn't call anyone and say, you need to run against so-and-so. I waited to see how the field shook out. And, I'm going to continue to keep an eye. If somebody says something that I think is very detrimental to the city, if something arises, then I hold back the right to get involved if necessary. But at this point, I'm kind of watching, and we'll see what happens.
All right. 'Tis the season of potholes.
Yeah.
What's the city's plan? What are you doing?
Same plan as last year.
What can't you do?
Yeah, same plan as last year. We have a roads plan online that talks about the main roads that will get that will get fixed. We've got a few main roads that will be getting fixed. And that when I say fixed, I mean like completely restructured, which is an expensive $500,000 to $1 million per road. Outside of that, we continue to encourage people to use Lansing Connect, which is the app on your phone or online, or call my office and talk to Mark Lawrence, our citizen advocate, to report potholes. We get to potholes usually within 48 hours. So when you report a pothole, we will get there and we will fill it. We have about $250 to $300 million in road fix need right now, and we have about $10 million to fix roads. We get between 6 and 7 from the state. We put another $2 million in from our millage, and then we put another $1 million to $2 million in for sewer separation. So if you're in the Colonial Village area, you're going to get roads because you're getting your sewers separated, just like Morris Park did last year. and we'll continue to do pothole repair and expensive restructuring where we can. But again, with $10 million of resources and probably about $300 million in need, there's a gap there.
What do you say to people like the one who spoke to me the other day about watching city trucks drive on his street without repairing potholes on his street? He lives in a neighborhood.
They respond to the complaints and they go and they fill that pothole and then any they see around it. But if they were to stop at every pothole on the way, they'd never get to the complaint.
So
There's a lot.
Should people be squeaky wheels? Is that going to get their potholes fixed?
If you report it, then it goes on our list and we get to it. It's the same thing as code compliance. Yes, I mean, in essence, when you raise a pothole to the city, you can even take a picture of it and submit it on your app. We'll get to it, unless it's raining. If it's raining, we probably won't get to it in 48 hours because the weather's got to be hot enough. The asphalt plants are now open. So, our staff, they do a great job. They do their best. But if a city truck is going past your potholes because they're going to another one where there was a complaint, that's the system and that's the list. We try and be proactive about road fixes. But again, with limited resources, we're looking mostly at main roads because those are the highly trafficked roads. Those are the roads that break up more. The heavier trucks are on those roads. So I know Jolly is on the list. Miller is on the list. There's one or two on the north side that I can't think of. But if you go onto our website and go to our roads plan, you can see what's going to be fixed and when. I spoke to a gentleman last night who was very upset and he wanted Jolly fixed. I called him on the phone. He wanted Jolly fixed, and his part of Jolly is getting fixed next year. Part of it is getting fixed this year. Part was fixed last year, and he was not happy, but he was happy I called him back.
But if they call and say, I live on such and such street, not necessarily a major thoroughfare, you're still going to get to it.
We'll get to it for pothole repair. In terms of resurfacing the whole street,
right?
It depends on a lot of factors, on sewers, on other utilities and what they're doing. We don't want to come in and fix a road and then have consumers come in the week, the month after, and then strip it back again. So it depends on a lot of factors, which is why we have a roads plan online that gives the general schedule. And then if we get more money, then we will add to that roads plan.
Okay. You included in your budget a plan to use renewable energy for city buildings.
Correct.
For lighting and other electrical needs. And sounds like City Council isn't going for that. Some of that reasoning is not surprising. They said, that's I think $283,000 extra that they would prefer go into inspectors or police officers. But you had a couple of members, Councilwoman Dunbar and Councilman Brian Jackson, say we think the money could be better spent figuring out a bigger plan for saving energy. How do you feel about it these days?
I'm fully supportive of the proposal we made. It's $100,000 out of our general fund, and then another 180 or so that you spread around to all the enterprise funds that pay for energy. So it's really about $100,000 from our general fund. If any of the council people have alternative suggestions for an energy efficiency bigger plan, I'm all ears. I haven't heard it yet. We put money in the budget from our general fund for an extra police officer. We put money in for an extra code compliance officer. We put money in for extra planners. Those are all very important, but I do believe we should be a leader on this issue. I believe that if we're going to ask our citizens to use clean energy, we should be purchasing clean energy. CATA is going to do it. Now, the Board of Water and Light has a limited amount. We can't provide for everybody, but we thought we would jump in first and we would be able to use what they have. They had that, ready for us to purchase. If council rejects it, then we won't be a leader on using renewable energy. And I guess I'm curious to see what their alternatives are. I have the option to veto, but I want to see what they pass. I don't know what the options are right now. So if they can repurpose that $100,000 general fund into something that continues to make us a leader, I'm willing to consider it. The other pieces we have taken care of. When you hire new staff, you have to consider a variety of things. It's about $120,000 for a new police officer, and that doesn't count the legacy costs. So we have put one more in for a new community policing officer, but there's only so much that we can afford. And the $100,000 from being a renewable energy leader won't pay for a new police officer, very likely won't pay for a new code compliance officer. So I guess I'm curious to see the alternatives, but I stand by my proposal, and I think that we should be a leader on utilizing renewable energy for the power that we use. Now, I'd also like to use less power, and we need more energy efficient buildings and things, which we don't have. So we're looking, we look at that as well. But I fully support the proposal I put in, and I have not yet seen alternatives.
And I want to ask you about the building you're in, but I just want to make sure, though, you're not ruling out a veto.
No, I would not rule out a veto. Okay. I guess I'd like to see what the proposals are, but I have all options on the table, and we'll use all the options the charter allows.
All right. The building you're in, City Hall, obviously needs a lot of work.
It does.
It's very expensive to maintain.
It is.
But we've now, since the beginning of your administration, been waiting for what's going to happen. So where do things stand?
Well, probably at the end of last year, and I think on your show, we said we were going to start looking at other options. The court consolidation with MSU being able to use their property for a county jail, and then our lockup could go there. That all fell apart. But we gave it 11 months to try, because I thought it was worth trying for a regional entity that was efficient, and it shouldn't happen. So we're looking at possibilities for, if we move City Hall, how do we reduce the cost? How do we be more efficient? How can we have a customer service decentralized City Hall? We're looking at all those options. We're costing them out. We know that the City Hall we're in, if we sell it to Beitler, who we've talked about in the past, and he does his hotel and restaurant, he's not asking for incentives, so we'd have a purchase price, and then we'd have tax increment financing in the future. We can use those dollars to finance a new City Hall, but there's only so much dollars, so we're trying to stay within that model. We think somewhere around $30 million is what we would generate in new taxes with a new City Hall that he proposed. We can use that to purchase to create a City Hall somewhere else without going to the taxpayers. It's all being considered and studied. I'd like to have some kind of finality of that soon, because I know he would. So we'll continue to have conversations with him, and we'll continue to look and see what are the most cost-effective alternatives, if there are any. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk to City Council, and we'll see where we land. And when the time comes that we decide this is the answer, or there is no answer, and we just have to stay in City Hall and try and make lemonade out of lemons, then but I'm not to a point where I've made that final decision yet. Could be soon, but there are a lot of pieces in place, because you've got City Hall, you've got if we leave City Hall, do the courts and lockup come with us, and that is another significant expense. Do they not come with us, and then where do they go? Those are kind of the biggest issues that we still continue to explore. If we didn't have courts and lockup, I think that we'd be able to come up with some pretty quick solutions, but we do. We have our courts, which we have four courtrooms and 4 judges' chambers and things. And we have our lockup, which is where we house people for up to 3 days before they go to the county jail. So we have to have answers for those things. And before we do, we can't move forward. And if we were to move forward without those answers, then we'd put the taxpayers on the hook, or we would not have a lockup or jail or courts, and that would probably not work either.
You mentioned court consolidation, and we've just reported this week that plans are continuing, that you and Mayor Mark Meadows are still favoring a modified consolidation. Tell us how that would work.
Yeah, right now, because the MSU plan kind of fell through, the property and MSU property, we would very likely still have 3 courtrooms. Originally it was a discussion of, do we have 2 courtrooms, one in Mason and one at the South Lansing, Delhi Township, East Lansing property down by Jolly and Collins. 2 courtrooms would have saved, 2 consolidated courts would have saved money over time, because there would have been attrition. That's just not on the table any longer. So we will very likely have 3 courts. You'll have one in East Lansing, one in Lansing, and one in Mason. Now, a consolidated court would be better government for some people right now, and I think I said this in the paper. If you're a Lansing Township resident, you basically drive past the Lansing court down to Mason. That's not really efficient government. Same thing if you're in Meridian Township, you drive past East Lansing down to Mason. So this, combining Lansing and Lansing Township, combining East Lansing and Meridian, it's more efficient government for those areas, so they don't have to go to Lansing, to Mason. This isn't going to cost us money. I won't sign on to something that costs us money. It could be less savings. There could be some savings, but less than what we had hoped for. But better government and some savings, but less, is still worth looking at. And we're having those conversations with the county, with East Lansing and us, and what is the county willing to do. And so we're working on a plan, and we'll see what happens. I know several other entities have weighed in, and we're taking all input.
And savings would be in personnel?
It would be, attrition with personnel.
And I believe Mayor Meadows has defended a plan that would freeze salaries for Lansing and East Lansing court officials until such time as county court employees' salaries could catch up.
Yeah, we haven't really had that conversation. I saw that in the paper. We haven't really had that conversation. The conversation would be if everyone became county employees, the employees, in the same way, it's the same thing that happened with the zoo. So the employees would be, I think it's called red circled. So they keep their salary and benefits that the city offers now. They would continue with those salary and benefits. So anybody who's got step increases would continue to get step increases. If you're maxed out on the step increase, then you're maxed out on the step increase. It's the way it is. But you would continue with your current benefits and salary until you retire, and then new employees that came in would come in under the county system. It does seem that the county employees are paid less. We haven't really talked about that. We just talked about using the same system we use with the zoo and possibly with the 911 center to kind of red circle employees to make sure that they're not losing anything by going to the county. And they would, in my opinion, they would continue to move forward as if they were city employees, but we haven't really written those details yet.
So they would essentially lose inflationary increases? Or?
I don't know. Not. I mean, they wouldn't. They would still be.
They would get the same salary, but and they might get step increses.
Correct.
If they haven't maxed those out.
That's what's written into the contracts right now.
But aren't there other raises that they might get?
When we do negotiations with our employees, we have. When we give raises, we put that into the contract negotiation. So the next contract would say you're getting an X% increase along with any of the changes, so it's part of the contract. So my guess is that would be done. We have to figure that out.
Yeah,
that would be done either through the collective bargaining agreement, or we'd have to figure out those details. But again, we have a model in place. It's exactly what we did with the zoo, and it worked out.
And getting back to development, we've
Sure.
got. As we talked about, the 600 block is proceeding. Yeah. Red Cedar is proceeding. Yeah. What's the next big thing?
Well, we have those two. We have the Y site is proceeding. The Oliver Towers, they're calling it Capitol View. That's proceeding. We have a lot.
You've got a lot going on, but what's next?
I'm still hopeful that we can come up with a performing arts center. Mm-hmm. The Arts Commission is doing the feasibility study, and I'm hoping that will happen. The city market, we're hoping to repurpose that, and we won in court twice, and the waterfront has till May 30th to appeal to the Supreme Court, and we haven't seen that yet, so we're waiting through May 30th, and we hope to have something else for that space very soon, along with the new Rotary Park, which is going to be awesome. We kind of have a lot of balls in the air. We're working with a lot of different folks to do work, and all over the city. We just announced a new Beacon Park with a new Beacon soccer field, and we expect development down in Southwest Lansing. We have the project down at Jolly and Dunkel, the Waypoint project with housing. We have a lot of things coming in the east side.
You're not going to announce anything.
There's a lot. There's nothing. There's nothing to announce right now, but we have a lot of balls in the air. I think City Market and the Performing Arts Center are the two things that are maybe.
Do you have any ideas for the City Market at this point?
I have some ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what? I won't tell anyone.
Yeah, I know. He won't tell anyone. There are lots of ideas. There are things that are more real. It could be. It could be a restaurant. It could be some kind of a food establishment. I think that is very appropriate for that space. We had people who came to us about a play space, and I don't know that is if they're able to finance that. We've had a lot of good ideas. So as soon as we ink something, we need to actually come up with a final deal. And when we ink something, you'll know about it. I'm pretty sure you'll write about it.
I'm for a city-owned ice rink surrounded by restaurants, kind of the Rockefeller Center of Lansing.
No, we just did an ice rink in Washington Park. Maybe we can put some more commercial down there. You know, we have a beautiful ice rink in Washington Park, and it was used quite a bit.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
Very
it was wonderful. I have not seen such excitement in that area. I mean, when it gets too cold, then people don't go out, but it was used, and we'll do it again next year.
All right. Well, anything on your mind before we go?
No, I think you covered a lot.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks, Your Honor.
You bet.
Good to see you, and thank you all for watching, and we'll be back sometime in June. Have a great rest of your week.